Hi, Grace. Nice to see you again in person this time. And we were asked by Ludidus to give a video um, as feedback to the performance by Grace to the speech made by Matthew Perret in our last video, which I'm sure you have all watched it. Um, and this is our first time since the last video that we can record a video for Ludidus in person rather than through the Zoom thumbnails. And I look forward to the discussion with Grace on the interpretation she's done for Matthew's speech. So perhaps, Grace, you can say hello to the audience.
Hello, everybody. It's a great honor for me to be part of this very interesting endeavor, and of course, a very big shout out and thank you to Matthew and Lo for orchestrating this whole thing, because actually you don't always see a consecutive interpreting demo in the Chinese language on the internet. So yeah, it's a really honor for me to be part of it.
Yes, it's exactly the first video of a consecutive demo in Chinese, I'm sure, with the A Word in Your Ear YouTube channel. Perhaps I can start with some general impression as a pure listener rather than an interpreter, because I listened to Grace's interpretation twice. The first time I listened to her interpretation without listening to the original as a pure customer. And as a member of the audience, I could feel that the information was clear and there were lots of accurate terms like 巴萨米醋. So if I hear these terms being delivered by an interpreter in an accurate way, of course, as a layman, I would feel that the interpreter suddenly won over my confidence, and I will have 100% confidence of what she will be giving us later on. And the logic of the speech, the train of thought, is of course there, very clear, starting with stories and description and some anecdotes ending with the science behind. And there were also very idiomatic Chinese expressions like 甲之蜜糖,乙之砒霜. And for those English audience, perhaps you could say your honey could be my poison. And there are things like 爱憎分明, lovers and haters. I believe these Chinese expressions will play an important role in engaging with the audience. And congratulations on the excellent job, by the way. And then I will wear a different hat as a professional interpreter this time. The speech, first of all, I would say, was excellently delivered with smooth flow, with a clear structure. So I don't know if you would agree, Grace, the speech's difficulty lies not so much on the active listening part, but more with expressions and delivery.
Exactly.
But speaking of that, I would say I found 2 points that were especially tricky in Matthew's speech. And one of them is that with a lot of foreign terms like Worcestershire sauce, like umami, like mozzarella cheese, they could probably pose a challenge to the interpreters, because sometimes we don't know if we could just give these transliterated words, or should we offer a bit more explanation. And I think you did it pretty well when you say umami and immediately followed by the Chinese word xian. So it's not just a foreign Japanese word, but something that Chinese people are all familiar with. But speaking of Worcestershire sauce, because Matthew mentioned it a few times,
Right.
When I was listening to that, because Matthew said something like you can add it to tomato juice or other beverage items, and I think it could raise a culture shock, because if you say 伍斯特菌的汁儿, something like that,
Yeah.
It could conjure up an image in some places like Hong Kong or Shanghai, where people use Worcestershire sauce, what we call gipzap in Hong Kong, or simply 辣酱油, spicy soy sauce in Shanghai, used with the fried pork ribs, if you know. And so I'm not sure if we could offer a bit more explanation, or if we can just give what Matthew said, because it could raise confusion.
Right, that's right. I mean, like first time when you encounter oyster sauce or Marmite, I think there are two things there. One is to note it down accurately on your notepad quickly, so as not to forget it. So my solution was to reduce these terms into acronyms or initials, or just a block letter, for those ingredients that are not readily available in the Chinese kitchen. I think the best way is to, get that down first. And then when you're delivering it in your interpretation, just to make sure that you probably would, first of all, when you decide on your interpretation strategy, you would probably adapt your delivery to your imaginary audiences. So for me, the imaginary audiences was my neighborhood people, sharing kitchen tips, how to make food, how to cook well, that kind of thing. Yeah. So yeah, but I agree what you said. 辣酱油 or gapsap is really a nice explanation, a very quick one to people.
It could be very tricky at the heat of interpretation under stress.
Indeed.
Well, the second tricky thing I found has to do with the foreign terms too, but in a different way. For a few times, Matthew gave a list of items of food, a litany of different foreign foods, like balsamic vinegar, mozzarella cheese, and others. So I'm not sure if we need to keep saying this foreign, very exotic to Chinese ears, foreign terms that much when it's just one in a list of items. Perhaps I would just keep the backbone, the skeleton parts of the information, like vinegar, like cheese, without saying balsamic or mozzarella, because those words sound very foreign, and we need to keep people make sure that their information will stay on the main message without being distracted that much by this transliterated items, because 巴萨米醋 and mozzarella 其实 could be a bit distracting. We hear it a lot in the speech, especially when your audience is your neighborhood people like grandma type of people.
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing is that you just keep the gist there and explain to people that it actually takes a combination of different ingredients and foods, maybe the right portion to generate the right amount of umami or 纤维. Yeah.
That's the gist, the main message.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's the two things I found challenging in the speech. So, from your perspective, what did you think would be challenging in the original speech when you first listened to it?
On top of what we have talked about just now, I think obviously the length of the speech is rather impressive, I should say, because I tend to take that as a kind of a stress test to our stamina, because in our daily work, we don't usually have like 12 minutes long speech that you have to interpret in one go.
I share that. It's very a tiny proportion of our work portfolio to deliver a 7-minute or longer speech, and I could recall that last time I did that was 5 or 6 years ago, because 99% of my job was simultaneous, and that's true, especially for the last few years, for a reason that you know very well.
Yeah, but I think it's better to sweat at home when you're practicing by yourself rather than to sweat in front of your audience or your client at work. So it's like a muscle training. It won't hurt to stretch yourself a little bit, both for consecutive and for simultaneous, to do a little bit longer than your usual shift
Yes.
so that you could, perform well when conditions becomes extreme.
That's true.
Yeah.
We touched upon a little bit the note-taking strategies in the first part of our discussion. You said that you would use some simple initials for these food items rather than long symbols. So can you please elaborate on that from the note-taking point of view, because we cannot avoid talking about note-taking as this is a consecutive demo. So what other note-taking strategies do you find useful in tackling this speech?
Well, actually, maybe I'll start with my usual strategies. Maybe I would do like acronyms, symbols, and maybe a little bit drawing. And then I'll probably switch between the two languages that I have, Chinese and English. If writing Chinese is simpler and quicker, then I'll probably, do it in Chinese. But yeah, the same thing for English as well. But for this one, actually, I couldn't have, think of any other better solution than just write down W as for oyster sauce and my MM. So yeah.
Perhaps I can add by saying that thinking too much could probably be the biggest enemy in note-taking skills, because your memory will play an excellent role in help you recalling things like Worcester sauce and mozzarella. And you could probably remember these words without taking notes at all, but when you're debating over whether I should note down by writing a W or Worcestershire, or even starting with the Chinese character Wu, and that debate could waste your precious time that could be probably devoted to analytical skills or other important things in note-taking.
Right. Trust your memory.
Yes, that's true. And perhaps the last question from my side would be, or has to do with a more generic scenario. How much in percentage is this kind of assignment in your day-to-day work portfolio, like long consecutive?
I would say very little, even though I would love to have more in my work. But as far as I can recall, I think maybe a few times at dinner, gala, celebration, or maybe, I don't know, events followed by, dinner, that kind of thing.
The ceremonial speeches.
Yeah, that's right.
And same for me. As I said, the last time I did a similar assignment was 5 to 6 years ago, and I could recall that was someone coming from a French chateau giving a speech on French wines, culture, history before a wine pairing event in an EMBA class here in Hong Kong. So I would say assignments like that are very rare, and I'm sure Grace would agree with me that this type of exercise serves as a very good wake-up call for us interpreters in an era where simultaneous interpretation has become the mainstream mode, and the audience has become more impatient with consecutive interpretation, which of course costs a lot of precious time. And I hope this video could be useful to our audience, and I think it's important for us to keep practicing, honing our skills, even for established professional interpreters.
Right.
Any last words for audience, Grace?
Well, we'll just leave it to you to practice and interpret it on your own, digest it on your own, or with your partner. So yeah, happy interpreting.
Happy interpreting.